He is hiding in the back.
Okay, there you are, Mr. Chair.
Perfect, thank you very much. Well, welcome everyone to the Corporation of the Township of Oshawa Valley. It's the committee meeting. Today is Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024. The time is 1:39 p.m. We're meeting in the council chambers, municipal building, and via Zoom conferencing. Is there any additions to the agenda? So I have two under new unfinished business 8.3, just gonna be discussing the Roma conference just for booking and scheduling. Then secondly, I received a letter from Herb Weckworth. So we'll be adding that into the Lake Clear RV land use reports. We all received that. Was there any other additions by Murphy?
No, sir.
Merv, Tracy, John? And I don't have anything else. Could please have a confirmation of those? Merv, all those in favor? Thank you very much. Was there any, does anyone have any pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none at the table, perfect. Was there any errors or omissions with the previous council committee meeting minutes? Seeing none, could I please have a mover confirm those? John, all those in favor? Thank you very much. We do have two delegations today. The first delegation regarding Centennial Park with Gerald Tracy and Terry McCann. Then we do have a second delegation for the Lake Clear RV land use reports. This is an information session just to receive information. Then we'll have a discussion on another date. So then we will move on to the first delegation for Centennial Park with Gerald and Tracy. I'll turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Chair. Gerald and Terry and Mary, if you'd like, can you come up here, please?
Some chairs forward.
Yeah. Get you some chairs, maybe.
Good thing those guys did. Thank you.
They're in the middle of the bus.
Mary, you're
David.
in the middle. You're the most voted down. You always do one, John? Come up, chair percentage. Okay.
So welcome and thank you for being here. My palms are sweating, Terry. Gerald Tracy has been a dedicated community leader and advocate for over 50 years, significantly contributing to the betterment of the village of Eganville and across Renfrew County. He has led initiatives such as the development of Fairfields Manor in the village of Eganville, providing much needed support and advocacy for local families, and has spearheaded numerous fundraising efforts for community hospitals, showcasing his commitment to our health and well-being. Gerald has actively participated in the community as president of the Eganville and Area Long-Term Care Corporation, as a fundraiser for St. James Roman Catholic Church and Grace Lutheran Church, and as a member of the board of the Eastern Ontario Development Corporation. He has been recognized by former Chief Kirby Whiteduck of the Algonquins of Pikwakanagan First Nation for his leadership and support of their community. Gerald has also served on the local police services board and is the presiding chair of Renfrew Hospice, demonstrating his commitment to public safety and community service. In 1990, Gerald successfully negotiated the donation of 13 acres of land from the McCann family to the village of Eganville for the purpose of celebrating the village's 100-year anniversary in 1991 in the creation of Centennial Park. As a request was brought to council asking for the renaming of the park from Mr. Terry McCann, and directions given to staff to arrange a delegation at today's meeting so that the Township of Ontario Valley Municipal Council can approve the renaming of the Centennial Municipal Park located in the village of Eganville to the Gerald Tracy Park in honor of his outstanding contributions and dedicated service to the community. On May 25th, 2025, Centennial Park will be renamed Gerald Tracy Park 35 years after this project began.
We're going outside.
Yeah, him, it's all him. Terry, do you want to tell the story or do you want me to tell the story of when he stole the land from your family?
Well, my dad and mom owned the land and on their death, the land was bequeathed to our family, my brothers and my sister. Gerald Tracy attended my office some 30 years ago. And he said, as only Gerald Tracy could say, you won that land. We want it. And we're not calling it after McCann. Now I know why we're not calling it after McCann. His personality that time and the assurance that he's given us that the land would be used for a park for the village of Eagleville. I said at that time that the McCanns, my brothers and my sister and myself, we were so happy to own that land so that we could give it to Eganville, a place where my mom and dad grew up. I thank Gerald for the last 30 years for the manner in which he came to my office and asked for the park. He was dedicated for the village of Eganville, for the people of Bonnechere Valley, and in such a sincere and friendly manner, he wanted to bestow that land on the people of Bonnechere Valley and Eganville. And we were so taken up. I phoned my brothers. I'm the eldest of 11 in our family. There was 10 living at that time. Everyone, excellent, good idea. There was absolutely no problem. And so I thank Gerald today, and I thank Eganville for accepting all that land. And I'm so very, very pleased today that we're able to dedicate it to this wonderful person. Thank you.
So we're sorry that we had to fool you into why you were coming. I'm not sure if you had any inkling, but the look on your face says you don't. You didn't.
I do have a list. I have a list of things I thought you wanted to
We'll still
update in
take
the
the
park.
list. We'll still take the list, Gerald.
Well, it's all up here.
This happens every time. Anytime we try and surprise somebody, they come all prepared as a delegate. And then we say, you're not really here as a delegate.
No. I don't have to write anything down from the history of the Centennial Park project. Terry did make one little mistake. The negotiations were not completely smooth. Right, Terry? We tussled a little bit. I think you ended up, we still has the right of way, right?
No, I don't
Oh,
think
did
so.
that come later?
No.
I thought we left that in your name, but you just allowed us to put the water and sewer in. I think if you check, I think you do because you still wanted to maintain some ownership, have some entity in Eganville, and I think.
But that wasn't part of the park.
Oh, no, but
No.
it was the main entrance in, and that without that entry in off John Street for the water and sewer, we would not have been able to. So that was part of your grandparents, the White House, right? JS and Tom. Anyway, Terry and I, we go back a long way. The McCanns, I guess, between the McCanns and the Tracys, I think we pretty well owned John Street. I think there were 4 or 5 Tracy residences and there were at least three McCann residences, starting from the Western Tire, the insurance, and down to the White House, which is Terry's grandparents, right? JS and May. I appreciate the honor that you're going to bestow upon me. As my good friend, the late Mervyn Olszewski, said when he received a significant award and recognition from the Polish and Canadian governments for the roles he played in bringing the two countries together to develop many development projects. Mervyn gets up on the stage and he says, "I don't really deserve this honor." And then he said, but I didn't deserve arthritis, and I've accepted that. So I thank you very much for the honor. But I want to pay tribute to the scores of volunteers who were with us at that time.
Absolutely.
Sadly, there are only a few of us left. Joe Conway being one. He worked in fundraising with our committee. But I think of all of the people who sat on the Centennial Committee from 1988 when it was formed, and Leola Calver was the first chair. Jeremy was the Reeve back in those days, the Reeve of Eganville. And it got a little bit, the project got a little bit too big for Leola. So she asked me if I would step in and help her, and I did. And for 4 years, we fundraised to build that park. We got the land, we begged, borrowed, and steal anything, but we did a lot of begging to get some government grants to develop the land. And we fundraised for the components of the park. One cute story is the bridge over the River Bonnechere. It was 30 feet short when it came in. And I think everybody remembers that story. I know some of us do. That's why you'll notice on the south shore, the huge cement pier. So when they were doing the engineering for the bridge and the surveyors were there, they had their fancy gadgets and they were doing the measurement from the north shore to the south shore. And I said to the guy who was doing it, I said, why don't you just give me the end of your tape and I will walk down and across the river and up. It's pretty shallow. Oh, no, we have this, whatever you call it. So everything was good, and then the bridge came in from Kitchener Forging on a tractor trailer. And lo and behold, it was 30 feet too short. So that got some tempers flaring. We had an on-site meeting with the engineer, the surveyors, bridge contractor. And I said, folks, we ordered a bridge to go from the north side to the south side. Clearly, we're 30 feet short. So I said, I don't know who's paying for this and I don't know who's going to solve it. But I said, we want the bridge to come all the way to the south side. You guys iron it out, because I said, we are not paying another penny. So I guess the most economical way of the day was to pour the cement pier, and that took a lot of cement. And then they've got a 30-foot section. I think it was 30 feet roughly. That's why you'll notice that there's a 30-foot
I've never
section.
noticed that. That's
Yeah,
very
so-
interesting.
Yeah, it just didn't make sense to go 3/4 of the way across the river and then take a dive into shallow water.
Worst bungee jump ever.
But, we had a lot of fun in the 3-4 years leading up to it. We had 4 car raffles to raise money. Ironically, one of the winners was Alex Calabell from Pointout. And I guess to remember Alex, he would have been probably 70 around then, which was old because I was only 40. Now I am Alex's age, and he had one of his girlfriends from Renfrew up. I won't say who she was, but Alex was a bit of a Casanova. And I can still remember taking pictures of her spread across the hood of the car that Alex won. Just nice poses, but we had a lot of fun. And then Pat Foran, of course, who was a lifelonger in Eganville, he was a winner, one of the draws too. But that's how we raised the money. We had draws, we had lots of entertainment at the arena. It became the focal point, and we raised 800,000 or whatever the cost was at that time to build it. But I think of the Pat Houlihan's, the Nettie Rankes, the Ross Stewarts, every organization in the community had a representative on the Centennial Committee. And we never had to worry about people not showing up at the meetings. Everybody was 100% in on the project. And when it came time for the 5-day celebration, I think it was estimated that we brought 40,000 people into the community in the 5 days that the celebrations were held. It was a massive. I don't think we'll ever see another one like it. I know we never saw one before that came close to it, except 1948 Old Home Week was a huge success back then, but of course, circumstances were different. The park is, as children, we grew up in the park. We called it the Cedars. That was just 13 acres of dry grass and cedars along the river. When we were young, we would go down there and smoke our matinees and then find some gum before we got home so that our parents wouldn't smell the nicotine off our mouths. But as kids, we played in that 13 acres of land, and we even started a few fires that kept the local fire department well practiced, because the grass was always long and dry there. But I can still remember too, when we undertook the project, someone said to me, "Why would you want to do anything with that 13 acres of garbage land along the river?" And it was garbage, because in the old days, people actually dumped their garbage there, like tin cans, all kinds of remnants, plus a few cars in the riverbed from Bernie Bim's car lot that got thrown over the hill on Halloween night. They always pick the older ones because he parked the older ones on top of it. But one person in particular said, "Why would you want to take that 13 acres of garbage land and do anything with it?" Do I have to answer that question? Because it's 13 acres of scrub land, much like the site of the old co-op in Eganville. Why would you want to take this piece of old crap land to beautify it? We are so fortunate to have the Bonnechere River come through this community. And over the years, we have done a lot to make it attractive looking. And I think there are still a few things that could be done in the future to just finish it off. But in accepting this, I just want to say, Jennifer, that I shared with every one of the individuals who committed themselves to the project. And I particularly want to thank the McCann family through Terry and Mary for their donation. I told them, I said, "You're not getting anything for it, so it'll have to be a donation." We're pretty blunt with each other, right, Terry? But I knew that would not be a hard sell, because, as you know, Terry's great grandfather was the father of not Confederation, but incorporation in Eganville, M.J. McCann, the first reeve of Eganville, 1891. And ironically, we ended up living in the house as children that your great grandfather built and owned. So I want to thank you, Terry, for doing this. You've been a lifelong friend. And it's a friendship I will always cherish. And to you and your family, I just say thank you, and to council for your consideration, for your decision. I thank you very much. I'm sorry that's.
So everybody's aware, the date, May 25th, was not taken out of the air. That's Gerald's birthday. So
I was wondering why you would pick your birthday to do.
all right, it's also my birthday. Because we thought it was a great day. Number one, it's a great time of year. It's a Sunday, and Terry and I thought Sunday afternoon after mass, perfect time to do.
You did your homework. I was just gonna see if it was a Tuesday, because we wouldn't be able to do it.
No.
We're still in business.
It's a Sunday. Yeah, yeah.
We'll take a 5
Okay, yeah, we're gonna take a 5-minute break. Maybe Alex, grab a photo of the McCanns with Gerald, and I'll give you my notes.
He's a busy boy.
Perfect. Well, Wes and Brent, we have you both, I assume.
Loud and clear.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So yeah, so just want to welcome you guys today to the Township of Boncher Valley. Just here to hear a report on the Lake Clear RV land use. So I'll just, who's leading discussion first, Wes or Brent?
Wes is, but maybe, because we were on a 5-minute break, maybe he took a 5-minute break.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. We'll just wait till Wes is there and Ed, and then.
Alex, I just sent them to you. Can you let me know if you get them?
I did the neighbor sharing as well, so.
Yeah, I just switched.
Oh, there he is.
Sorry, I was having trouble with audio and video, but I'm with you now. Good afternoon, everybody.
Thanks for joining us here, Wes and Brent. So we'll carry on with your report, Wes, to start. Do you need Annette to share the screen with you?
I think that capacity is already enabled. Is that?
Yes.
Do you see it?
Yes, we do.
Wonderful. Well, thank you to Township Staff and Council for giving Brent Parsons and I the opportunity to present our findings and recommendations on the updated Lake Clear Capacity Assessment and the RV Planning Report. Brent and I will walk through the slide deck, which provides highlights of the study context, our respective reports, and the feedback received on them. First, the study context and approach. There are roughly 50 to 60 RVs around Lake Clear. Storage of RVs is okay, but occupancy is not allowed. So the township can either, with option 1, maintain the status quo and or enforce the rules, period, full stop. Or with option 2, figure out a way to strike a balance between RV use and the health of the lake itself. So our 4-step approach relative to this context is as follows. Number 1, we're trying to strike a balance here. Best management practices supporting lake health, and along with point number 2, land use compatibility, neighborhood character, and enjoyment of the lake, which are all important and interrelated factors. Point number 3, the use of case study research, which demonstrated the use of general official plan policy to support more specific zoning and license provisions as it regards RV use around lakes. And number 4, Brent's report, which recommends option 2, which I just highlighted, namely balance RV use, best management practices, and the health of the lake. So the RV planning report proposes 3 tools: an official plan amendment, a zoning bylaw amendment, and a new licensing bylaw that incorporate best management practices with flexibility through graded scales of provisions and compliance requirements that are based on the extent of RV use and lot size. Brent will now highlight the updated lake capacity assessment, and I will be MC on the slides.
Thanks, Wes. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. So the major findings, this slide showcases the major findings we had from the capacity assessment, which are similar to the ones that we presented previously. So all of these measures of lake shoreline capacity have their limitations. So I try to look at multiple lines of evidence during studies like these. One of them was just water quality. I didn't present that on the slide, but water quality is quite good in the lake. There's high water clarity and low nutrients. Another line of evidence was the lakeshore capacity model, which again is kind of like the standard way in the province to model phosphorus concentrations and see how those phosphorus concentrations compare to the provincial water quality objective. The model accurately predicted phosphorus concentrations in the lake at 8.64 micrograms per liter, as you can see there on the slide. And the provincial water quality objective was quite a bit higher than that. So that means that there's capacity between 8.64 and 10.7 that could be taken up by additional development. Another line of evidence we often use in capacity studies on lake trout lakes is dissolved oxygen, specifically the deep water oxygen. There's a lake trout habitat criterion that MNR has developed of 7 milligrams per liter. So the idea is that if there is more than 7 milligrams per liter, then there's capacity development. And if there's less, then there is not. And there is less than 7 milligrams per liter of this deep water oxygen in Lake Clear. So that provided a conflicting line of evidence from the capacity perspective, which I'll speak to a little bit more later. Our recommendations in the report were that up to 2 RVs could be accommodated on each lot without reaching the provincial water quality objective for phosphorus, and that both existing and future development should incorporate best management practices focused on naturalized shorelines, stormwater management, septic maintenance, and monitoring to assess the effectiveness of those best management practices and continue to assess lake water quality. Next slide, please, Wes. We submitted our report to MECP for review, and MECP had, that was in October. They provided their comments in March, and then we met with MECP multiple times to discuss their comments. Their comments were generally focused on, again, those 2 lines of evidence, the mean volume weighted hypolomnetic dissolved oxygen, a complicated way of just saying that the oxygen in the bottom of the lake that's important to lake trout, and then the inputs we used for the lakeshore capacity model. MECP did their own modeling as well, which ended up over predicting largely the phosphorus, unless a soil retention factor was used to say that, you know, a certain amount of phosphorus is not getting to the lake from septics, as has been shown time and time again in peer-reviewed science. And so those were really the main differences in our approaches. So we responded to all MECP's comments and justified our selections, but then we also ran a whole bunch of different scenarios using different parameters in the model, in the lakeshore capacity model, just to showcase what the difference would be in results and capacity based on these different inputs. We had 8 scenarios. 4 of them resulted in acceptable accuracy, where we were accurately predicting phosphorus concentrations in the lake, and then 4 did not. And of the 4 where the model actually worked, the original approach resulted in the lowest number of allowable lots, so it was the most conservative approach of a model that predicted accurately. So we provided our responses to all MECP's comments and those modeling scenarios. MECP accepted those comments and had no further comments on our response. So we ended up including that response as an addendum to the original report. Next slide, thanks, Wes. Okay, so these are our big kind of overarching conclusions. So again, it's the lake is over capacity in terms of measured dissolved oxygen, but all of these lines of evidence kind of have these limitations, and that's why I like to look at a bunch of different measurements. So some of the limitations with dissolved oxygen is that the linkage is that when more people live on a lake, it results in more nutrients from wastewater and stormwater. Those nutrients will result in more growth in the lake of algae and plants. And as those algae and plants decompose, they reduce the amount of oxygen in the lake. That's the theoretical linkage, but there is no documented evidence that shoreline development of this type of nature and septic use has resulted in harm to lake trout habitat. We also modeled what the dissolved oxygen concentrations in Lake Clear would have been prior to any development on the lake. And we found that concentrations would have always been less than 7 milligrams per liter, largely because of the shape of the lake. So it's, you know, unknown if there should be no development on lake if concentrations have always been below 7. And we also don't really know how well, you know, the resident lake trout population has adapted to those dissolved oxygen concentrations, you know, over thousands of years. The lake is under capacity in terms of phosphorus in the lakeshore capacity model and the way that just measured phosphorus compared to the provincial water quality objective. We recommended a large variety of best management practices for existing and any new development. The phosphorus load that we used, that we attributed to the future RVs was actually the same load as we use for a seasonal residence as a cottage. And the reality is that many RVs will be serviced with a holding tank, which should result in complete removal of effluent and that nutrient phosphorus load from the study area. So from that perspective, it was a conservative assessment. The planning report that Wes is going to speak to further had a large number of compliance requirements, such as determining occupancy periods, required septic servicing, shoreline vegetated buffers, licensing fees, inspections, violations and penalties that will minimize impacts. When we consider that development is currently permitted on vacant lots of record for cottage development, but not RVs, I think largely RV development results in less impacts on a lake than a cottage. Again, largely because that effluent is often taken away from via a holding tank instead of put into a septic. And then the last point is that the current use of RVs is unknown. So we don't know how well they are currently serviced or if at all. So by moving forward with the plan as presented, that aspect could be controlled as well. Thanks, Wes.
Thanks, Brent. So our recommended planning framework in the RV planning report is based on the conclusions in Brent's updated lake capacity assessment. And as per my introductory remarks, we are proposing 3 tools. The first is an official plan amendment. This amendment would still allow RVs to be stored, but it would also allow RVs to be used on a temporary seasonal basis on vacant or developed waterfront lots from May 1 to November 29. In regard to vacant lots, RV use would be subject to on-site servicing requirements, such as potable water, code-compliant sewage treatment. If the RV is to be used for more than 7 consecutive days. For RV use less than 7 consecutive days, the on-site servicing requirements would not apply, but the RV's on-board holding tank would have to be emptied at a licensed facility. In regard to developed waterfront lots, the official plan amendment would allow RVs to be used only for special events, in which case the on-site servicing requirements would not apply, but on-board holding tank emptying would have to be at a provincially licensed facility. The second tool is a zoning bylaw amendment, which builds on the official plan amendment and again focuses on waterfront residential lots or lot zone limited service residential or LSR and rural or RU. On vacant lots, the proposed planning framework offers 4 scenarios. Scenario 1, one RV used up to 3 consecutive days. With this scenario, no licensing. The RV's onboard holding tank would have to be emptied at a licensed facility. The RV and lot wouldn't be able to have any accessory structures, and the shoreline must be retained in its natural state. Now, if the lot owner would want accessory structures and shoreline access for a dock, as an example, then they would have to get a license. And the additions and accessory structures would be subject to development standards. With scenario 2, one RV used for up to 3 consecutive days, as per the above, but there's a request for RV use for up to 7 consecutive days. This is okay once per season, no licensing. The RV's onboard holding tank would have to be emptied at a licensed facility, and the lot owner would have to notify the chief building official in advance. And again, the RV and lot wouldn't be able to have any other amenities without a license. Under scenario 3, where one RV is used for more than 7 consecutive days, the baseline is licensing, accessory structures are okay, but again, subject to development standards. With scenario 4, and this is for sites 2 acres or larger, the lot owner could have up to 2 RVs on site, but this would be subject to a minor variance and licensing. And accessory structures would also be okay, subject to development standards. And in regards to developed waterfront lots, 1 RV or up to 2 RVs on lots 2 acres or larger could be used between 3 days and 7 days for special events. That's okay once per season, no licensing, no accessory structures. The RV's onboard holding tank would have to be emptied at a licensed facility, and the lot owner would have to notify again the chief building official in advance of the event. The third tool is a proposed licensing bylaw, which builds on the zoning bylaw amendment. The bylaw would exclude RVs in storage, assessed RVs, and RVs used up to 3 consecutive days. On that latter piece, so long as there are no accessory structures and or additions. Compliance would be global, no exceptions, and note the licensing triggers as per my earlier highlights. In regard to the licensing provisions, RV occupancy would build on the scenarios in the zoning amendment with more specific provisions regarding the need for potable water, class 4 septic, electrical service, and civic addressing, and entrance permit requirements for emergency response. Fees would be set in the fees and charges bylaw. They would be applied over a calendar year period and payable at the end of February, and proportionately refundable if the RV is no longer in use. A license would not be issued or renewed if the application is incomplete or if there is a regulatory breach. Township staff would be authorized to inspect. Violations would be subject to an administrative monetary penalty or AMP, which can be issued and resolved directly through the township instead of through the courts. And the license could be revoked for a regulatory breach, in which case the RV would have to be removed by the licensee or by the township at the licensee's expense. This slide highlights the public feedback that the township has received on our reports. And this feedback was provided vis-a-vis various study briefings, emails, letters to the editor, and meetings that township staff and the JLR HESL team had with Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, as well as with county staff. As shown on the slide, we've grouped the feedback into key themes with summary points highlighting each. So the first, in terms of study intent, we heard that the planning report is biased and the current context does not equate to the recommendations. As shown in our response, our reports are linked. So the JLR planning report is linked to Brent's HESL updated lake capacity assessment report. And so our planning report builds off the updated capacity assessment. Theme number 2, the planning report uses unsanctioned data from the Lake Clear Property Owners Association and does not provide local case study examples. In our response, the 2018 data from the LCPOA was compared to publicly available 2020 mapping data from Renfrew County for contextual baseline purposes only. And further, the intent of our case study research was not to establish local benchmarks, but rather to determine a potential planning approach. Again, building off Brent's updated capacity assessment report. 3, in terms of lake quality, the positive and negative observations about lake quality are reflected in the updated capacity assessment, the latter of which cannot rest solely on the shoulders of nutrient loading, but the effects of climate change must also be considered in that regard. 4, the project team should have consulted 3 times with the LCPOA, and that the report review period should be extended beyond end of year 2023. As part of our response and during our study briefing with the LCPOA in November of 2023, I acknowledged and apologized to the LCPOA for engaging once with them instead of 3 times. And in light of that oversight, we subsequently worked with township staff and council to extend the report review period twice, ultimately to the end of June 2024. It should also be noted that the proposed planning framework, should it be endorsed, would be subject to future public consultation and public meetings as part of the next steps in the process. 5, 1,200 RVs are way too much. Yes, we agree with that, but that is not what we are recommending. This number is a full build-out potential scenario only based on the lakeshore capacity model. It can be reasonably assumed that the actual number of RVs would be much lower based on landowner preferences and the proposed planning framework. Theme number 6, enforcement. The township does not have the resources to enforce its bylaws, let alone the proposed planning framework. As per our report, we outlined that the township has 3 choices moving forward. Maintain the status quo, enforce the current planning regime with zoning as the only tool in the toolkit, or develop a more nuanced approach based on the updated capacity assessment. So our planning report offers 3 tools instead of 1, along with graded scales of compliance to respond to an issue that has been existing for years. But I hasten to add that this response is only a step. As I just highlighted, the proposed planning framework, again, should it be endorsed by the township, would be subject to future public consultation, public meetings, and we recommend that this public awareness and education program should continue. So in essence, what we are suggesting from an enforcement point of view is a multifaceted approach. 1, the use of 3 planning tools, coupled with 2, ongoing public engagement, awareness, and education, as well as 3, municipal reviews and monitoring of the framework itself to help with future compliance and municipal enforcement efforts. Theme number 7. Does the study recommend changing the status of Lake Clear as an at-capacity lake? The short answer is no. we are working within a context that maintains the designation of Lake Clear as an at-capacity lake. Theme number 8, the Ontario Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks opposes the proposed planning framework. This was true in February of 2024, but based on our meetings and correspondence with the MECP, it now supports the proposed planning framework. Theme number 9, the proposed planning framework should be expanded to accommodate more flexibility and options for RV use. It is critical to reflect on MECP support for the planning framework as it is currently proposed. But it is also important to note that what we are proposing here today, it's a living document. And as such, there would be future opportunities to review, monitor, and refine it moving forward, provided it is endorsed by the township and ultimately put in place. And finally, our reports provide an opportunity to resolve an issue that has existed for years. Based on what I've just highlighted, it is a starting point in an attempt to help the township to do so. To conclude, it is my professional planning opinion that the RV planning report, including its proposed framework, represents good land use planning and should be endorsed in principle by Township Council at this time, with additional review, engagement, and approval efforts to follow. That concludes our presentation. On behalf of Brent, thank you very much for your attention, and we're here to answer any questions from council.
Perfect. Thanks, Wes. Thanks, Brent. Jen, you had a comment on the
did.
zoning?
Thank you, Wes. Thank you, Brent. It's ironic that you're giving us this document and in 22 days, the provincial policy statement is changing again. In any case, that might be good news for us because with the revised PPS, our county OP will most likely have to be opened up as well. And our zoning bylaw will have to be opened up. So this is actually good. I'm not thrilled about the changes in the PPS again, but in any case, but I think that the timing of this is actually pretty good. I will say, guys, I wish I had opened up the 12-page document before I opened up the 111-page document and thought that I had to read all 111 pages. It should
I
have
hear
been,
you. I hear you.
it should have been executive summary.
Yeah.
If you really need some sleeping material, they should have been like that. Yeah.
I hear you.
But,
I hear you.
No, I truly appreciate this, and although I didn't understand a lot of the 111 pages, by the time I opened this document, this really broke it down well for us. So thanks for that. But again, like, if the county's opening up the OP anyway, it'll save us on an amendment because we could probably just piggyback. And thank you for dispelling the rumor that we want to change the at capacity status.
You're welcome.
Don, do you have any questions?
Yeah, when you refer to best practices, who provides those best practices? Is that your firm or is that a ministry designation? Anyway, where do best practices come from?
Well, the best practices build off of Brent's updated lake capacity assessment. In terms of the best management practices, the development standards that we highlighted in our report and on our presentation, those would be a combination of lot owner. So in terms of setbacks, potable water, class 4 septic, civic addressing, emergency response, generator use, setback from high water mark, natural vegetation retention along the shoreline. Those are more lot owner specific. And part and parcel of that is then the enforcement of the provisions themselves, which dovetail into township purview.
And like the actual specifics of the best management practices, you know, like the size of what a buffer should be and things like that. You know, I think that's something that can be defined through, you know, future work, next steps. I've actually worked with JLR on a fair bit of those types of studies in the past to make sure that the BMPs are based on best available science, which is generally available through peer-reviewed literature.
Any comments, Mayor Tracy? No, I'm good on mine.
Good, yeah, I think next steps then is we need to discuss and I know that Wes and Brent have option 2 here. Again, not a bad timing for an OP change. Our zoning bylaw has to be, I just realized it's gonna be opened back up for this anyway. So I think we need to make a decision to go with option 1 or option 2, and then begin the process of public meetings. Now, the challenge with this, once again, is that we are going to be condemned if we try and have a public meeting in November or December. And does this mean that we're going to have to wait until after May 2-4 weekend next year to have a public meeting when most of the people on Lake Clear are here?
Can we do it virtually?
Well, it would be tough.
I don't think maybe I shouldn't be saying this, we can't think that we're dealing with a large park. We're dealing with a lake. You don't have access control and egress control, et cetera, et cetera. We're dealing with a lake here. It's going to be difficult.
But it's,
Annette, go ahead.
So the only thing I would say is that the first step, if that option was chosen by council, the direction that staff would need would be whether or not we're going forward with the official plan amendment, which is a county doc. So the county would organize those public meetings. The county would be in charge. So I don't know how much say we would have. We could certainly suggest that a spring meeting would be better, and they may not even be ready until spring. I don't know where the county's at. I don't know how much capacity they have, if they're reviewing the new PPS, if they have to open the official plan, if they're still doing other zoning bylaws. So we only have so much control over that is all I wanted to say. So
you are correct. At county last week, our senior planner did say there were the PBS, the changes in the PBS weren't huge for the county.
Okay.
But my question was, did the province take into consideration how much this is going to cost upper tier and local tiers with OPs and comprehensive zoning bylaws? And of course, they haven't. And I see this, it's gonna be big money to open up the OP. And it's gonna take time. Our last OP, I think, took 8 years. It was all 3 years of me being warden.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this isn't gonna be solved tomorrow. And I think Wes and Brent, you very astutely said, we're at a starting point, which is frustrating. But we were at the same timing last year where we asked for comments by the end of the year, and then we got lambasted and asked for this extension. So
the county has to follow the planning timelines. So the only control we have is when we submit the application.
right,
That's really, after that, it's not really in our control.
okay.
I have a question. Is it worth having a conversation as council about bylaw in general? And without having proper bylaw inspections, none of this can happen.
I think that's a conversation for another day.
Oh, it is for another day, for sure. But I'm asking if we should have a conversation about bylaw in general,
Yes, we're gonna have to,
given certain circumstances.
yeah. So I know that Annette's been all over it.
Yeah.
They're not doing anything right now, right? Just for the next.
So we're straying away from the discussion that
Sorry.
we are going to have, but it is it is connected because enforcement and bylaw is part of this discussion. Unfortunately, our bylaw, consultants at this time are mourning. The leader of their organization who was, unfortunately, passed away unexpectedly, because of an accident. And so I have been in contact with our bylaw enforcement agency. They are going through files. They said when they get through all of their files and get everything organized, they will be back in touch. So whether that's 2 weeks, whether that's a month, it's a family run organization. So, you know.
I was
they
thinking more
will be back
affordability in the
touch.
future, regardless of who it is, it's affording a bylaw officer to police, you know, something like this.
And what if I may,
Mhm.
what I would say to that is that's why in my discussions with Weston, but that's why it's as flexible as it is. That's why you see, you know, if it's only weekend use or if only, that's why it's licensing, that will be, you know, run through our licensing officer, which is Erica, and our CBO.
Yeah.
So there may not need to be enforcement because you've already been inspected, you've already been taken care of with your license. Or it could be, there is some enforcement, but we'll deal with it the same way we deal with it now, one at a time, on a complaint basis. And that's how I don't foresee our process changing any. Will we be busier? Absolutely. Will we have to budget for a little bit more money towards bylaw enforcement? Absolutely. But what I can tell you is bylaw enforcement is more than half what it used to be. So there should be some room there to be able to absolve that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we're on complaint basis anyway, right? We're not sending bylaw out to look for problems. So,
Right.
I mean, that's the way we are now and that's the way it'll continue. But bylaw is going to be a question for another day.
Is there septic inspections? Is a random question. Is there?
For new septics, we don't have any for septics at this time, but that if we go through all the process and the OP gets approved and the bylaw gets approved, and then we're into licensing bylaw, all of those terms are what we will have to discuss at that time in the licensing. How are we doing that? What are we inspecting? And that would be done through our CBO, not bylaw.
Okay, just curious, all the moving pieces, right? That's a part of it.
But we also wouldn't be responsible for inspecting everybody's septics.
Right.
That would be on the RV owner, the landowner.
Right.
But again, are we going to start asking cottages to have proof of septic inspections?
Yeah. If the risk of the health of the lake, I would think that could be part of it.
But I mean, the township at large wouldn't be paying for those, so you'd be saying to one area, you must have these inspections done and we want proof of it. And I'm not sure how many people would comply, to be honest with you.
The only question I had for Wes and Brenda is more on the utilization of the three seasons, for example. Like I know is noted on page 45 of their documentation for the case study. It was just on that because we shut our Eganville sewage, like our dump station, down in the winter. But would that be the only reason on it? Because would it not be comparable to like an ice shack on Lake Clear itself? I was just curious on why you can't utilize an RV if you're intended to pull it, move it, but you can utilize an ice shack on Lake Clear. That's all. I was just curious on how or why or if we can work that in.
Oh,
That's
the
all.
timing of our dump station, you mean?
Yeah, because it was just noted
Gotcha.
that it was timing a dump station.
No.
Wes, do you know what the reasoning is why there's no winter use? That could be a best management
Mhm.
practice. I'm not sure. Or Brent, whoever.
Combination of the licensing facility closure and I'll say it's a conservative, I'll offer a conservative remark just in terms of the health and safety concerns about RV use during the cold winter months. That was what helped inform the 3-season scenario.
But I
But
guess
again,
with that,
that's you know, as I said, it's a living document. That could be further reviewed. Appreciate that RVs of the 1950s or RVs today are a lot different than RVs of the 1950s. So appreciate that technology has changed with respect to RV design. But again, that was more of a conservative interpretation based on seasonal risk to health and safety.
So that would be seasonal risk for the RV user, but not on the degradation of the lake, as long as they, like, that's where I was kind of curious is on, so that it's more, that concern is more addressed for the actual recreational vehicle user. But its impact on the lake would be no different.
Well, then you have to dovetail that remark with the holding tank piece and the license facility being closed during the winter.
And that is,
That's a conversation we could certainly have with Daryl to see what can happen there, if anything.
Well, that's what I was looking at is what avenue, right? Because you have your different levels of class that you can hit on each step, so.
Yeah, and I don't know whether or not it could be extended into the W.
He's right there.
That is,
Mhm.
but that would be determined in the zoning bylaw portion, so that wouldn't be determined necessarily right away in the official plan, because they're more policy, and then the nitty gritty.
Yeah, so that's your living document side of it. That's why I
Right.
was just curious because it was noted, so.
Yeah, no, good.
But that's everything I had.
you know, it's funny because I assumed both, that it was, you know, living conditions at that time of year, but also our dumping station.
Well, just another reason it's, yeah, go
It
ahead.
just occurred to me that we have friends with an RV that has a fireplace in it,
Well, no, it's like,
an electric fireplace.
yeah, like I had someone visit our
Love them
place
to
that had a trailer and theirs goes down to very cold. So that's why I was just kind
Yeah.
of curious on, that's the only question I had. Did anyone else have anything for Wes and Brent?
Sure.
Perfect. Well, we really appreciate Wes and Brent, you guys presenting today. I'm sure Annette will be in touch with you, and if anyone has any questions, please forward it to Brent, Wes, or Annette. And then besides that, anyone have anything else?
Just remember, boys, executive summary.
Yeah. No,
Sorry
we
about that.
really,
I went down a rabbit hole that I couldn't get out of.
we greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Nice working with everybody. Take care.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Echo that. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Does anyone need a break before we move on? Perfect. We'll take a 5 there, Annette. I got 10 more minutes.
I honestly, I thought you might say no.
Perfect. All right, Daryl, welcome to the table. So go through your report, Daryl, here.
All right, it's a little long this time. I got 2 pages.
I know, I appreciated
It's
that.
exhausting.
As long as the other one we just had here.
Yeah. That was an epic fail on my part. So Brent did have a question for you.
I have a question.
Yeah, can the dumping station stay open all winter?
Oh, I can, yeah. Daryl, can the dumping station be open in the winter? So what actually is why? Is it just because,
Freezing up.
just freezing up?
Hmm. So you don't recommend keeping it open at all?
No,
Okay.
no.
Is it just because the type of lid we have or what actually would change?
Well, I think I'd be more concerned about what goes on like around on top.
Mhm.
But the lid would, like it may start freezing down. Because the lid's gonna constantly get splashed and stuff.
Mhm.
But I don't think there'd be very many people wanna dump in the middle of the winter anyway.
It was a great,
Usually
it was a
after,
great observation though, from our, with our.
No, just
Brent.
because our consultants in the last one had just said, one of the rationales for not having permanent use on like, say, like your Lake Clear, for example.
Mhm.
So from going from 3 seasons to 4 seasons, one of the things was because their dumping station isn't open in the winter, but is any dumping station open in the winter?
gee, I don't know. I have to check with.
I was just curious
for
because like if it's
the-
only like sometimes it's a simple part or it's just simple sleeve.
Yeah,
I can't imagine a lot of people would because they need internal lines on it. so.
exactly, yeah.
Where do people take their hazardous waste?
To our
Yeah.
hazardous
Same-
waste
same.
No, it's
depot.
closed. Isn't it closed the end of
Yeah,
September?
you can only do it during the summer.
Keep
I
it in
said
your
I-
garage till the spring.
Yeah.
Maybe look
Not
into it,
paying
Daryl,
attention
just see
or-
if there is an
I have
alternative
no
for it, just
idea.
as
You can't take-
just
You can't
Sure.
take stuff there.
as an option. Don't need to add more work to your plate, but it's actually, it could be a simple fix or a simple option. That's all I was looking at.
Okay,
If you, it's not an emergency, but if you think about it, you're bored one day in your beautiful office looking out over the Bonshire River.
you got the last part right.
He's never bored.
I shouldn't get bored, no.
No,
Okay, I'll do that. So anyways, we're still carrying on, doing our things.
Mhm.
We did wash the outside of the water tower, which, hasn't happened for about 5 years now. Really cleaned up nicely on the outside. We have to do some work down in the pit.
Mhm.
And we got that all fixed up. My man Dylan passed his 4 OIT exams and he has his certificates right now. We had emergency response training for DWQMS, element 18. Our audit is gonna be in November. So. Sewage plant, pretty well everything. We completed all our sanitary manhole inspections. Jason's been good enough to start, repairing some of the lids that are giving us a little grief. We took out 2 bags, 2 geotubes. Possibly might take 1 more, I'm not sure yet. We'll see.
That's the one inside the greenhouse.
The one inside,
Yeah.
yeah. We'll kind of wait and see what, we might be able to squeeze another winter. It's a real gamble because we have to kind of wait
Or
until.
just a bunch of the catch basins, I guess. There would have just been all out of pitch or something, or that's why Jason, his guys are repairing them.
Oh, yeah, he's doing a lot of his storm manholes,
Yeah, that
but I
makes
have
sense.
some manhole, the lids, we have a couple that are broken now and.
Yeah.
And, he found one this morning that was caving in. So we got that fixed.
I was gonna ask, dare I ask what was going on Bonashire Street this morning?
Lots. We're fixing our catch basins
Okay.
that have sunk.
Oh.
Yeah, because you had some on
so-
Alice Street, Water Street.
Yeah.
They're Bonisher. Yeah, that's
So he
good.
has quite a bunch ready and he's gonna pour concrete in them all.
Brilliant.
Makes sense. I saw you measuring for it yesterday, Jason, so I knew it was coming up.
I was in the, in the flagging queue.
Murray, you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna make a comment. I really like your painting of the hydrants. I really like the fluorescent, that really catches the
Does it
eye.
ever, I can't get over it, how it shows up.
Yeah, oh, it really shows
In
up.
the evening, it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still not minions, Daryl.
That would be
Still like
cute.
me.
Still not
Yeah, that would
minions.
be
Oh, I know,
cute.
they're not.
Well, you just get a tooth on it for the
Minions,
winter.
maybe painted over. I loved our minions.
Maybe there's high school students who have talent who could do
No,
that.
just put tubes
We
on
did
them and good to
Tubes
go.
on.
Years ago,
As minions?
yes,
Oh,
we had
I
5,
5 or 8.
yeah, maybe 8.
I like them how they are, Daryl.
hello, good
Yeah,
job.
the problem with the minions, for some reason, they're not tough and they rust. I have no idea why, but
It's so weird,
It-
because we
they
used
really
them.
rusted a lot and they showed the rust.
Yeah, and they, unfortunately, after about one winter, they were all fadey too.
Right.
Like there were only a couple of them that kind of lived. But it was fun, it was fun doing them.
So we're gonna,
I like how they are now, Daryl.
we're gonna
appreciate it.
continue to paint them all red.
Okay,
We've got a different paint, it really is.
No, it holds up
Working
well. I
out
can
very
see the
well.
one you down in
Yeah.
Wellington. It looks great.
So.
Perfect. Anything else for Daryl? Perfect.
So, we started, taking out our media yesterday. And we have a disaster, so. I'll be coming back next month and talking about it.
I like the. Oh, Daryl,
So that's the worst, right?
you're always our easiest department head.
Well, I'm not
I'm
gonna
sorry,
be,
Jason, he really is.
I'm not gonna be hard on you, don't
Are
worry.
you, are you
But
gonna,
it is gonna
are
be
you
hard
gonna
on the
know
pocket.
in, are you gonna know in like the 2 weeks at the next council meeting, or is that gonna be your next report?
I don't know if I'll get all the stuff together.
Oh, okay.
I've already started making calls on Monday
Hmm,
because I noticed this on Friday when we trained them.
okay.
So, but now we took them out and they're even worse than what we see.
Oh.
So tomorrow, we're
So-
gonna get inside them and
So the original company won't be able to do what they're able to do, or we have to do additional work on top of that?
we have to do additional work.
Hmm. Sounds good.
So I've already talked to the engineers and then I have to get the paint inspectors and then I need to get a painter. Get all that done
Mhm.
and then these guys will come back. They were really good. I thought they'd give me a hard time, but
Can that work?
Yeah,
Can that-
no
can that
problem.
work still get done, when it's a little colder? Or-
Yes.
Oh, okay, it's still.
it'll cost a little bit more because we'll have to.
You have to heat it?
Heat it.
Yeah, okay.
Cause it has to stay, I think 65 or 68 degrees. For, maybe 5 days or 8 days or something like that the last time.
So before the end of November.
Well, I have to have this done and they have to be back up and running by about the end of March. So we have time, it's just, getting it organized and the money.
Okay.
I have an idea on the money, so I just have to talk to my. money
Well,
lady.
you and Nat let us know and just come to the table when you have it prepared.
I feel Jason's budget being,
No, no, it's actually Kevin's.
oh, yeah.
Perfect, thanks, Daryl.
Bye,
Okay.
Daryl.
Jason, go ahead.
Everyone.
Hello, Jason.
So we had a decent response for Thursdays being opened at the Snowdrift site, which is really good. So we're gonna run it now till I believe the end of October. See how the rest of the month goes.
Okay.
Sand Road site will be closed Monday the 14th. The rest of the waste sites will be on to winter hours, beginning October 15th. Household hazardous waste was closed, the 28th of September.
I understand it was pretty busy.
I can just imagine. And it'll be cleaned out this week, I believe, so everything will be hauled away and and good that way for the winter. So we did, we would have a discussion on the August 13th with the representatives from Tranquility Bay and the Bond Trail Snowmobile Club about the completion of the trail. They've done a lot of work. There's still a few areas that have to be leveled up so the groomer doesn't slide off and do damage to the machinery. So I was down there a week ago and nothing's been done since, so I'm hoping that they get out of before the winter. Our 10-hour shifts ended on the 20th. Everything seemed to be very well. The hours definitely helped. So it's greatly appreciated. Community safety zones. I believe everyone got a.
Oh, yeah.
The bylaw and.
Best 9 pages of our report.
And I also believe you got the guidelines also, right?
Yeah, so let's just apply for the whole village. The whole village. So if we were ever to do ASE, it can be done in community safety zones and school zones, correct?
Yes.
So the school zones are already taken care of around St. James and EDPS.
Yeah.
All right, so it's just a matter of where else. So I see Jane Street is not a community safety zone until you get, or a school zone, until you get quite far down.
Yeah, you're pretty much in Hartwig.
Right. And when you come down Hartwig, it's far past Tracy's house, but
Yeah.
the school's right there.
It's dangerous.
Yeah.
The corners.
So I think the most important ones are Jane Street, Hartwig, Melanie and Wellington,
Well,
yeah, and Queen.
yeah.
Do kids not? No, I guess,
No,
no, I
they
guess
all go
it's,
down Wellington.
right, okay. So I think those are the most important ones. But I'm thinking in terms of further down the line, if the county adopts this ASE and we can put it where, you know, where we have these community safety zones, then would it be worthwhile to talk about other roads that we know are a problem?
So I was looking at pretty much similar lines, but in the sense that, like, I agree with obviously like your, like Hartwood Jane, like that makes sense. Wellington makes sense, Melanie makes sense, around the school, all that. Then, but I was looking at your, best way to put it is your 41 to your 60 stretch though.
So,
Like, so the thing
okay,
is, that, like, I'm not worried, it's not the accessories off of it. I was just like, I'm not concerned about like where it goes, like say Maple Ridge, for example, but it's your actual.
Right.
City 41 accessories, so Longshore Street, East, West, Water Street, Queen Street, Patrick Street, Bridge Street, Alice Street.
but that's sort of, I don't know why that road changes so many
4
times,
times,
within,
like-
yeah, within a kilometer.
Yeah, but that's where I was looking at, because those are your travel through lanes through
So, th-
Eganville.
so that's why I was saying, let's blanket the village. Are we allowed to do, I didn't see anything in there about MTO roads in the guidelines.
No, I didn't either.
So is this gonna be another one of these? Is it their road? Is it our road? Is it their road? Is it our road?
And it's just a matter of, you know, contacting MTO and saying, you know, this is what we'd like to implement. And they'll give us feedback within, you know, a short time.
Okay, so if I may, we're talking about the village limits on 60
Mhm.
and then down to the south entrance of Fairfields.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah, because that's the top of Alice Street before it converts to 41.
Right.
And vice versa, like that to me makes the most sense as a starting point.
Yes,
Yeah.
now, my other question was the tributaries into the village, i.e. 512 and Fourth Chute being the two major contributors to complaints. Again, can we apply for a county road?
We'd have to go through.
There was nothing, I looked, I read it, but there was nothing in there. Well, I mean, I'm sure it's a matter of asking the county,
Yeah.
can we say, we'd like to put up community safety zone areas? But I think, I don't know if
I think-
everybody agrees, I think the driving around here has gotten far more aggressive in the past 2 years.
Love
I
the
think it's
comments online.
a lot of, it's a lot of your through traffic as well, and that's why like the 4160, I'm just using those even though they're named in
Yeah,
our
yeah.
township.
Yeah,
But your 4160, I think it's a good starting point, and then if it goes through the, like it goes through well.
then
Get your
do,
fisheries, then we can look at adding additional ones to see if it does change anything. See if it helps support, say, your OPP, everything like that as well.
but then would Queen Street make sense to do now? Because it is near a school and a church.
Oh, where it wraps around.
Yeah.
the Queen.
Like do Queen, Wellington, Melanie,
It has more high usage now because you don't have your school buses, but all your school buses, kids, they generally all take Melanie Street or take Melanie and Queen Street. Like that's where everyone would take, and that's
Okay.
where your sidewalks get dictated.
Yeah,
So-
and they do turn down Wellington from Patrick also quite a bit.
Yeah,
Like that's.
right?
they
it
usually
would,
do-
it would make sense to circle it. But, yeah,
I say we do Queen, Wellington, Melanie, 41 and 60 for lack of better terms, Jane and Hartwick. I think those are the ones we should apply for,
well, you have, yeah, no, I agree.
right? And then if need be, then we can apply for, then we don't need fourth shoot because Queen is fourth shoot. And then it's just a matter of 512. And then,
Well, you'd have eventually, like where you look at it would be your tertiary entry points, which would be, so that would be your Foy Mount Road, that would be your Foy Mount Augsburg, and then that would be on your other end of four shoot, actually, you'd extend it down.
I don't find Augsburg is as bad. Because when you're coming in, you're doing this.
My biggest, I think on this point, because it's school focused, it's school directed, and that's why I think 4160, because you have your kids, like, for example, I see. There's several kids that walk past the bridge every single day, they walk all the way to St. James, so it's like that whole stretch.
Yeah,
We have walkers in our township in Eganville, so I think that's a good starting point.
but then also leading to Low Lake Clear and Wyland, correct?
Yeah.
Fourth Street is terrible, because it's in a 50 zone, but they're driving like 100.
I-
And there's a daycare as well right there on Fourth Street. There's a woman that's a home daycare.
So,
I know you can't control everything, but it's.
No,
I know, but that-
I would say is you're extending down to your Queen, which is on the bottom side of the school zone, I think.
Yeah.
On our first in my opinion, our first application to try to have the most likely we're gonna pass or get approval would be school focused, and that's why the 4160, because that supports our cross guard. They're jam packed on the 60 every single day, 41 no different on the corner. So I think those ones make sense, and then we can look at afterwards the secondaries as well.
the other thing is, if we get automated speed enforcement, then we can go back to the well if need be. But I personally, I think I've watched people tear down Jane Street. We've been in the Eagle's Nest during the day.
Yeah,
And I mean, they're flying on Jane. So I think that's really important and Hartwick's really important.
Yeah.
But I don't, I mean, with the kiddos being dropped off by the parents now, what a nightmare.
yes,
Like-
right in front of my driveway.
I'm sure they are.
That's,
get in and out.
That's why I think for a community safe zone, it's a good starting point, and then we can have discussions for branching it off afterwards.
Okay,
I
well,
think
I'm,
they're focusing
I'm
on
just-
schools.
I'm just excited to open up this bylaw.
Yeah,
Because I didn't realize that you had to be a community safety zone to have ASC until we talked about it at the county. And we were, a whole bunch of us were outside and they were like, no, it's got to be a community safety zone or a school zone. So that'll be an interesting project. But definitely people on 41 and 60 will be very happy. Are there extra fines if you're speeding in a community safety zone? There are. Oh,
That's the point.
thank you. I should know that from being on the
It's
PSV.
it's double, and
It's
that's what, and that's.
That's
what-
a school zone.
well, I
Is
thought
it
I
double
thought
for
it said
community
in-
safety
I
zone?
think so.
No, it said in the documents we had that it's double,
It did?
pretty sure, yeah.
I don't
That's
know
something.
how. I missed
That's the
that.
main, we just need interviews, like, look at the volume that your crosswalks stop on a daily rate and stuff like that, you just don't wanna be that statistic, so then. That's what we wanted, that's why I think it's a good starting point, so. Sounds good, everyone's in agreement for that then, so Jason, you'll just
I'm
move on to the
happy.
next
Yeah,
step with the
sounds
net,
good.
obviously?
Yes.
Perfect.
And in your application, you'll mention that now we have an ambulance, bay that'll also be a good point for dealing with MTO. We already tell them about the fire hall, but
Yes.
What was that?
the new ambulance, the EMS station should be noted on when we talk to MTO about our safety zones.
Well, and the fire department's here.
And it's here, I assume we already tell them about that. Oh,
Yeah,
no,
they won't care. They're exempt anyway. Lights and sirens are exempt from everything. Basically, almost. Okay, I don't see this, guys. I read the whole knowledge of collisions, presence of pedestrian, proximity to schools.
But a separate set of fines if the offense was committed in a community safety zone, effectively, the regular set fine is doubled,
Oh, so that's probably.
Oh, okay.
effectively.
All right.
So it doesn't, yeah. I don't know what that means. Effectively, it's doubled. I don't know.
Well, I was sure in the school zone it was done.
Yes, in a
Yeah.
school zone it is, and in community safety zones, it's an additional fine that effectively
So
doubles.
what
it.
we'll say is we're both right. That it wasn't properly in there, but it was good.
I don't want to fight.
Yeah. Okay, Jason,
Okay.
carry on. Sounds like we're all in agreement for that. So let us know what support you need to get that moving forward.
Yep, that's all I have.
That was really good information, Jason. I really appreciated it.
Then,
And I actually forgot that we had named those other 3 roads years ago. So I hope they're still signed.
yeah, just 1 second.
Okay, yeah. just-
Go ahead, Merv, and then I have
No,
one
no,
more thing at the end.
I was just gonna ask Jason a question. If someone wants to buy a piece of our unused road allowance, I'm trying to figure out where it is. Has it been run by you? Do you know where this road allowance is that someone wants to buy?
I'd have to get the information.
Merv, maybe just email Jason separately and then just call him for specifics after, speak with
Well,
him.
we don't have to pass it tonight.
Are you talking about the Silver Lake Road?
Yeah. what-
Yes.
Don't say anybody's name.
No, it's fine. It's on our agenda. So Jason, I had sent you that request with the, our plan, where a part of our road, it's not an unopened road allowance, it's actually our road, that they're trying to get a severance through the county, but
Yes.
they can't, but they're like, but you don't actually have road frontage, because the piece of the road is not, it's a forced road, so it's not really owned by us, but it is us. So, and I had sent that
I
to
just
you.
wonder where is it?
It's Silver Lake Road. It's the actual road.
Oh, I see.
We don't own it. Like, I mean,
Well,
it's ours.
we can't sell
Well, no, we're not selling it. We are, what's the word I'm thinking of? Assuming it. We are assuming it. I don't want to say we're buying it because we're not buying it, but we are going to assume it.
it. Okay.
We technically already have assumed it and we do maintain it,
Yeah.
but we're going to in a land titles assume it if that's direction I received from committee today.
It's before Hankey's film.
Oh, perfect.
Sorry,
Jason,
I didn't realize you were talking
We're
about.
talking about 8.2.
8.2,
yes.
Yeah.
It's a way beyond, but it's.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
was
just
trying to
didn't
ask
know.
Jason because he's here.
yeah.
Yeah, I just
No,
didn't
I
know what
didn't
you're
know
talking
either.
about.
Merv, it's just past, or just before Hankey Swamp.
But you had no issues with it, Jason? It looked
no,
pretty
No,
straightforward, to be
everything's-
honest.
Yeah,
It's not an area where it was controversial a couple of years ago.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, I gotta hear that story.
I just didn't want to stir the pot, sell
No.
something that was controversial a couple of years ago.
No, it's our actual road, like it's an actual traveled road.
Okay,
So I don't see any, we're already maintaining it, so I don't see us actually assuming it through land titles being an issue.
Nope.
okay.
That sounds good. The only other thing, Jason, was just on the one request from the library, which was correspondence B, number 2, request from library to install the book drop. You reviewed it, or your staff reviewed it?
I was up talking with, Susan at one point.
Yeah.
And I'll just go back up and make sure that's where they want it. And we'll get up there and get it kind of
Well, you gotta keep track of your hours so you can build North Algona for your extra service. That would make the most sense. 30%, so makes sense. I'd still try. Well, I would. Makes sense to me.
Brent is very cheeky today.
On a good note, Zata Road is, a little over halfway paved on one lane.
Right?
Oh, that's awesome.
That's good.
So when's their ETA for completion, you figure?
It'll be finished paving tomorrow, and then they'll have a couple days just to clean up and shouldering and. yeah.
Are they gonna do that little bit of Silver Lake Road before they leave?
No, we're not gonna get able to do that. No,
I don't think that was in the budget.
no, we,
It was not.
No,
It's in the
that,
budget, yeah.
no, we said no at the budget this year, Merv. It was too expensive. That was at the count in our budget this year.
budget, yeah.
It,
I think Merv missed that.
Mer,
No, I
Yes, it was in, if you're right, it was in the budget package, but it got voted down, but you weren't able to attend that meeting because of your
Okay.
surgery,
Yeah.
sorry.
I forgot, sorry,
Yeah.
Merv, yes.
Because
It
my
was in-
position was, the equipment is there, get it done now.
Yeah.
My excuse has been over the years, we gotta bring in the equipment, it's too expensive.
Right.
The equipment is there now in Zata Road, do that little kilometer.
yeah, it was, and then discussion, well, my opinion on the discussion at the time was that we would just have a significant rate increase to cover it. That was the biggest thing on that one, if I remember.
Well, I'll deflect the complaints to you guys when it comes in again next year.
That's fine.
Just there was, work that had to be done where like there was cross culverts, there was driveway culverts, there was ditching.
That
there
was the reason.
There was a significant amount, we had to fill in a few areas, we had to do some dig outs, there was just a lot of work that had to be done prior to.
Well,
I
it
can't remember
wasn't
what
not
the
that
cost
bad
was.
a shape.
It was a lot.
Significant.
Yeah. And we asked you why it was so much for that 1.2 or whatever it was. And I think that's the exact reasoning you gave us during budget.
That's right.
Sounds good. Anything else for Jason?
No, sure.
Perfect, thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Daryl,
Daryl is at his OBOA conference. It says he wears two hats. So that is where he's at, but his report is there for your review. I didn't see anything major in it, but if you have questions, I'm happy to take them back to Daryl and get the answers back.
I had nothing.
nope, seemed pretty straightforward.
John has something.
It seemed like the fire call stats are balancing out a little bit more now as we go through.
John,
Don't mention it.
you just cursed them. Why would you put that into the universe?
Oh, I don't believe in a curse. All right. I thought, I won't say. more.
It is good when they level out budget wise as well as safety wise, but yeah, some years it just goes crazy.
Mhm.
Oh,
And he
dark
will be
pool.
here at the next meeting because there's a request in there, council's available prior to
Just
starting.
for the
meeting.
Enbridge.
But
For the Enbridge.
it's in the invitation, it's actually at 1:30.
Yep,
Okay,
yep, so we may have to start this meeting with.
Can we
maybe a
make
couple
them-
minutes late.
Can we make them into a delegation? Is that easier?
I think they want to do it in the fire hall
Oh, yes,
because
that's
it's,
right.
Honestly,
It's
all it's
the-
gonna be, it's no different. We started the meeting today at 1:40 or 1:39. We'll start the
Yeah,
meeting when it is.
Yeah.
They're doing a media launch on that, right? Like it's a,
Mhm.
they do it at every municipality. They bring,
Sorry, I
swag.
didn't mean to skip ahead, but just.
Stuff like that, yeah.
it's a nice thing to win.
It is,
That's
Yeah.
what I was
well,
trying to say.
And it's very nice because Enbridge started their, again, it's in my mayor's report, but Enbridge started their project. We jumped right into 1975. They started their project the Monday after OEMC, right? So 13, 14, 15, on the 17th. Yeah. So Enbridge, so we've got, well, you saw in Daryl's report, so we've got Bell going in, we've got Enbridge going in, it's an exciting time.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So then, nothing for Daryl's report. And we've already discussed correspondence B, which is sweet. Correspondence A, any comments, questions on the one? Nope, perfect. Move on to correspondence B. We've already discussed the request to attend the official announcement to support from Enbridge for fire department. So we're all gonna,
Everyone's going to be here for that. I just have to give them names.
yeah,
Perfect.
well, we'll all be here anyways at 1:30, so.
Just in case.
Perfect. Then we already discussed the request from library to install the book drop. That's just to replace the current one, so it's delivered inside. Jason will go see that. It's perfect. We had a request from the Training and Learning Center to waive, I believe that was a $200 fee.
Yes,
I have no issues with it.
I
That
don't
makes
know.
sense.
no, and the amount that they do in our community for a hot dog cart,
Yeah.
for, one off, yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Then we had a number 4 request from museum.
So I'm looking for direction from committee because the open space.
Our space.
Our
Space.
space, thank you. I don't know why I want to call it open space. I knew it was wrong. Our space is looking for a location and I believe they are hoping to be able to move to a new location in the spring. But in the interim, they've got 6 months with nowhere to go. And so the museum usually closes during that time period. And so they had a conversation to ask if our space could rent space in the museum. So one, the museum would then be open in a time it is normally closed. So if someone wanted to go in and see the museum, there would be somebody there to take their admittance fee and the museum would be open certain hours. And also it would provide our space with a space for the local vendors that they sell their wares for. So that was sort of the request that came from the museum board. And I said, well, I will certainly take that to council because we have a lease with the museum, can they have a sublease, that kind of thing. So what I was asking for is if council is okay with me moving forward with negotiating, because the museum has to negotiate with our space and we would negotiate with the museum. So depending on what rent they were paying the museum, what portion would go to the township. And I had discussions on, there's, because it's not usually open, there could be costs with heating, lighting, things like that. So I'd want us to recoup the cost. Maybe council wants a little bit additional for the residents. I don't know. But that was basically what I put forward. And if I'm okay to go ahead, if we're okay with it in principle, then I will go ahead, we will have some conversations and I will bring it back at the next meeting on the 15th in closed to bring forward the numbers and the negotiation for further direction on whether that's okay or not.
Currently right now, we close it down. We have no heating costs, no nothing.
Minimal. They're minimal,
we
right?
just-
There's no hydro, there's minimal hydro, there's.
No, but
minimal
we don't
heating.
heat it, we don't heat it in the winter.
We heat it only so that the
Yeah,
pipes don't
certain
leak.
level.
Just minusculely.
Right,
But it's not, but this lease would be 6 months, 7
Mhm.
months, 8 months.
6 months, I believe. So like from November 1st or
To May.
really October 31st, because they have to be out on the 30th. So it's October 31st until, I believe May.
Can I add just something to this as well? Like
Sure.
we've, with the fund that we secured, we've really done a lot of improvements in the township, from hiring local artists to improving the museum. Like this would be, obviously I'm pro this because I'm on the board, grid revenue generation opportunity for the museum to continue all of the things that we've already started. And secondly, all of the vendors are local that we're supporting.
Well,
You know.
and I would, it
Sewing
would just be
lessons, all kinds
so
of stuff.
awful. Because I think it's such a good business model.
Mhm.
That I wouldn't want those vendors to go away from November the 1st to April 30th and never, ever, ever come back. When Tammy, I guess I can,
Yeah.
she's unidentified, when Tammy finds a new space in the spring.
And it's programming as well. It's not just vendors.
Right.
It's sewing, it's yoga, it's, guitar lessons, it's many things that are offered in that space.
I would hate to see them,
So
But
we,
what's the rationale for moving into our space rather than others?
so they can't find anywhere else to go.
But why
Nobody else.
couldn't they extend their lease?
They can't. I don't know whether their landlord has another tenant coming in. I'm not sure, but they can't extend their lease.
Mhm.
And so and they have another one coming. It's just there's a gap there and they have yet to find anybody else with a space that's available for them. And so, and they have inquired, I know they have inquired because they've gotten some out, we can give addresses, we can't give phone numbers, or even if we had them, but we didn't have them even for this individual. So I've given them addresses for people to inquire about. And, you know, so we had some discussions whether or not the rent was split 50-50, whether or not, you know, I think they're not looking for a freebie here. You know, it seemed reasonable to me. I don't want to put prices out there unless we're enclosed, but if we agree that this is something in principle we'd like to look further in, then I would bring back way more detail to a closed session on the 15th. But if it's something that we're opposed to just in principle because it's a museum and it's not meant for that we don't want to get into multiple leases, then that's, you know, I'll take direction however you want me to go. I just didn't want to get into too many discussions with the museum in our space without at least knowing council was interested in principle. You know what I mean? Because that's.
I think to Brent's point, I would love you to negotiate, but I think heat and perhaps hydro have to be on top of a nominal rent
Okay,
to protect ourselves. Because as
Well,
Brent
you're gonna go from a base point of just maintaining it to having excess, like I don't,
yeah,
and, yeah, yeah.
I think that's
I
fair.
would just be more comfortable.
I'm just, the biggest thing is that we've never, it wasn't. Because you never opened that space up for anything else, right?
that's correct.
So you had your
That's
one request coming, like I'm not really huge on it, because I think the entity should stay as it is. And like, that's my opinion, I think that should.
But if it's closed anyway, it's not being used. I don't know, I think it's a great revenue generator, but I would want to protect ourselves with heat and hydro.
Yeah, and then your entry point, that would just be through the standard stairwell, so then, or does the museum maintain it, or because we don't maintain those steps in the winter, I assume?
No, we maintain the,
You do the snow
It's a
removal.
the snow removal like
Around
around
the
it.
ramp.
So then we would
Yeah.
have to maintain the sand and salt, or the library's got to maintain that?
The
museum?
museum or their, yeah,
Or sorry,
their,
museum?
yeah, they maintain the steps. I don't think we do the steps. I'll double check,
Well,
but
just
I
because
don't,
we
I think
don't,
we
because
just
we
do
don't
the parking.
guarantee
It's
entry
closed.
every
Yeah.
day.
I think we
Well,
just do the
no, and
parking.
that's where I was getting at, just for,
Yeah.
yeah, salt and sand on top of that.
Yeah,
as
so they
well.
would, I
So
would say
that would
that
have to be a conversation
Yeah.
on top of that, he's going up and down the stairs as
I
well.
think, who's, we know it's Tammy, it's our space. I
Yeah.
think that she would maintain that. I mean, she has to do it now where she is. if
I was
there's-
gonna say, write it into the lease.
Well,
Yeah,
and I think rental insurance, like if we are
Oh,
adding on,
yeah.
we are named, you know, things like that, so,
Yeah.
additional
100%.
insured. So if we're talking heat, we're talking hydro, base rent, additional insured, and make sure that they're doing, maintaining the entrance.
And then, but who staffs the lot, like who staffs the museum when it's open?
It's closed.
It's
It's
closed,
just the one portion that will be open.
well,
No,
so,
but it's closed. What Tracy is saying is the nature of our space is that there's always a vendor there.
Yeah.
Whether it's Tammy or
Yeah.
somebody else, there's always a vendor. What Tracy was getting at was that if somebody, even though it's closed, wanted to look at the museum, then there's somebody there.
yeah, we get the admittance fee then.
Yeah.
then the museum would, yes, so is it $2 to go into the museum?
Yeah, something like that.
So if someone came
thought
in
it was
and said,
bifurcation.
I'd like to visit the museum, and they paid
Can be
a
both.
$2 entrance fee, then Tammy would, our space would take that money as they do for all their vendors. So if I'm selling sunglasses,
Mhm.
and Tammy sells sunglasses to somebody, then she would pay me for this, like she would pay me for the sunglasses. So if somebody came in and purchased admittance to the museum, she would collect the $2 and then she would pay it to the museum.
Like the museum's really grown from what it used to be. I mean, Preston did amazing work. I'm not saying that. We have a new board, ambitious board. You know, I love the idea of the community hub concept of and what Tammy has to offer, because we've hosted, you've seen the wine and cheese event that you
Yeah.
were part of. And there's more things like that we want to do, and not just seasonal, not just summer, you know.
Yeah.
So she's an enabler to continue that growth.
I don't have a problem with this, mostly because I don't want them to go away. I just want to make sure that we're protected.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
That's fair.
I'm not alone in this.
I've already stated my opinion.
I agree with Annette. beginning negotiations and bringing us back the balance sheet.
Just remember, time is of the essence, guys, so this has to be brought back to our next.
Yes, I did mention that I'd be bringing it here, and if it was agreed to in principle to have a further look, and if I got direction to negotiate, I would get back to them and we would come up with some options, and then I will bring it back to council on the 15th and closed. And we can accept or not accept at that point. I mean, I don't, I have numbers that they've offered, but I didn't get too deep into it because I didn't even know if it was going to be agreed to, at all, so.
I don't really see the downside for us, but.
But I do think heat hydro and a base rent are certainly on the table in the small discussions that I had. I don't think sanding and salting will be an issue. We didn't get into the insurance discussion because, as I said, I didn't want to go too far down the line.
But they must be insured now,
I would think so, but I don't.
like contents insurance as a lessee.
Yeah, I don't.
So whether or not they have,
No, the people in our space.
so we would need a minimum. I like a 5 million, but if we've done a 2 million before with other people, liability where we're not insured, just because that does save.
There's one thing we always forget about the museum is the arts side of it, right? So it's the Arts and Historical Society.
Yeah.
So with the fund, we really launched and put a focus on the arts, and these vendors are artisans that are there.
Yeah.
Promoting and selling their wares, right? So it's fit that way.
I think it will more than cover, the numbers that I have, I think would more than cover our costs. There would be a small revenue. And the big negotiation really is how much of the revenue, so the cost will be covered, the liability will be covered. The question is how much of the profits, so to speak, how much of the rental revenue do we get and how much does
All of it.
Well, now the museum is hoping to get a portion of it. So that's where the negotiation may.
For warm wine and cheese events.
may take a turn, but I can bring you back those
Well,
exact numbers and options.
they have new emissions, right?
Hmm?
Like they theoretically just have new emissions, no different than what it is now.
What do you mean?
Well, if someone's going in to see it, like for the rental side, like, I don't know, I'm like, if it's a 6-month term.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can discuss it, just bring an option back at
Yeah.
the next meeting.
Yeah,
It's
because
I still want, I'm not a fan of being permanent. The reason for that is
Mhm.
because it's never been offered to anyone else or made
Yeah.
public that it's gonna be, so I have no problem with
Yeah.
a short tenure on it
Yeah.
and then go from there.
and the museum,
That's the only thing. It's a public entity. We haven't offered
Yeah.
the lease out to anyone else, no different than the RFP for like the canteen, for example.
Mhm.
Anything like that. The association's the only one. So it's just something that I don't want to be a permanent fixture, and that's why in the lease, 6 months, they have another place to go. That's great.
Yeah.
I just,
We wouldn't be able to do permanent. We need the space, like once we're open again.
Yeah.
Because we have, our vision is, having different kinds of displays and I said, growing the museum, so.
and the museum.
but
has-
there's no board members at the museum that sell any of the things.
Yes, there is.
That
Yeah.
keep,
Yes, there
that
is.
keeps it, like for Kearney or anything like that. Like, would that not be a?
Well, on my I am right now, I have some stuff at our space, but I won't going forward.
Like, because would that not be as, I'm just speaking on more of the museum board's aspect, would that not be peculiar interest that their members of the board are having stuff sold at our space?
So
Not
here's,
trying to create an issue, I'm just
No,
like,
you're not
this
wrong.
is, I'm right
You're not
in
wrong.
it.
it's a fair point, but here's where it starts to break apart, is that, council in the township is covered under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
Mhm.
The library board is also covered under it because they're a
Yeah.
local board, so it would be the police board, so it would be these other boards. But the museum is not a board of council. The museum is its own not-for-profit corporation
Mhm.
under Anka. And they may not, they may have a policy that they have to declare, but I don't know what their policies are, so they have.
Oh, I was just curious.
The
because
majority of
it
their
came in
board
as an
members-
email and not anything else.
The
That's what-
majority of their board members have agreed to this already, but again, that could be part of the negotiations and the discussions that I have with them, because we're negotiating with the museum is negotiating with our space.
Mhm.
So I think that's part of the
Okay.
discussions of, we want to know how many board members, like, that's a fair question to
Mhm.
ask.
But why is it an
Um,
issue? Just curious, why is it an issue?
If there's pecuniary interest, it can always be an issue.
Because if it's, yeah, it's because it's public owned space, it's public owned dollars, so we have to make sure we're making responsible decisions for the public. It's a fair question.
It is.
So. I can bring all that back and close.
Yeah, so that'd be at the next meeting that we.
Yeah,
can
October
post for it.
15th,
Yeah,
if that's
fine.
all right.
Sounds good.
Yeah, because they have till I think the 30th,
Mhm.
and at this point, they don't have anywhere else to go. So, just like to, maybe they'll find another place. Maybe they'll watch this discussion and they'll be like, well, we're not fully convinced that we're gonna get that space, and they'll find something else. I don't know, but, if this ends
Well,
up
I'm
being
the
their
only
only
on
option.
our end, because I know, I just would really, I'd be curious on what the actual heating difference would be by heating it, because it's not gonna be cheap to heat that building in the full winter.
That's why I'm saying.
A proper thing, it's not, I don't
Yeah.
think, compared to what you could get for a commercial rent,
Mhm.
I don't think the heating cost for that would,
And we heat it,
would make sense for, as a business standpoint, to rent it. I think it's gonna be high.
and just to be clear, we do heat it now,
Yeah, but you,
just only to a level so that the pipe still.
yeah, you can only maintain that at probably 10 Celsius, I would think.
Well, she pays
I
extra
don't
for
know.
heat and hydro now.
I would-
I mean, it's
that's
not
what I-
unreasonable to,
No, it's just,
Thought that way.
it's just a lot larger building.
yeah, we'd have to figure that out because it's also increased revenue for the museum in terms of admissions.
Mhm.
People
Well, so,
coming in, having it
yeah.
open.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure we aren't losing at the end of it, because
For sure. Yeah.
that's the biggest thing.
Mhm.
So that's good. We can talk about it next time.
What's wrong with Rico?
So then resolution regarding OPP, anyone have comments?
I say no,
No, perfect.
because I want to know what happens to our partnership fund that nobody can figure out how it's calculated if we upload OPP.
Yeah.
It's a bad idea.
Well, we actually discussed this, I think it was 4 months ago, it came to the
And it
table.
was the same township.
I actually thought it was just from an older one, but request from CRC.
Isn't this interesting, especially in light of our youth summit? I
Yeah.
I am really kind of jazzed about this.
Yeah,
Like,
wish there was something for teens, that older teens, but you can't
So,
have it
so
all.
Annette, the dates in your email say that it
That's-
lines up,
The dates, yep,
there's no issues with it.
no, apparently they've
No.
already talked to Kevin and I think it was,
Because we've already done this previously, I thought.
but this time they're doing, and to your point, they're doing impact, I just
Yeah,
opened
they're
it up
doing age
again.
groups. Yeah,
Impact 12+,
yeah.
mhm.
which they didn't do before.
We did a cooking class. I'm gonna call it a cooking class. They probably had a way better, cooler name for it. We did that over a few weeks, like it was after
And
school.
then we waived those fees, or
We did,
Okay.
and then we also had an after school, I think that was the same as the cooking class. I think those were two different things that we had going on with CRC. So obviously they liked our facility and are interested in hosting more programming here.
Yeah, so I have no problem with the request, just
I'm all in.
Yeah,
waive it and hopefully
I
everyone
just thought it was neat, the timing of it.
Mhm.
Well, it's in our strategic plan, when we had this discussion where we talked about shared services, which I agree is other municipalities, but it's also these type of groups that, we don't have program staff. We can afford program staff. But if there's a group out there that's willing to put on a program that doesn't cost, it does cost us, obviously, they're using the facility. We talked about heat, hydro, that kind of thing, but it's already there, and if nobody's using it and it's just sitting there, yes, we do have to have a staff member available there to open it up, but at least somebody else is putting on the whole program and planning it out, and, that's.
But don't you think it's better anyway to have some subject matter experts come and do this type of programming
mhm.
than try and reinvent the wheel, especially now that we're down a member of our Parks and Rec department?
Yeah, definitely.
No,
Right.
there's only positives with it, so.
It is.
Okay, go ahead, move forward. Correspondence C, unfortunately, nothing. New unfinished business, 8.1, the draft MOU, Snow Ditchers Club.
Yep,
So this is, very similar to, we just did one for Bontre. Which we had our insurance and our lawyers look at, so I took the same wording. Cause they sent one that was similar, but it was missing the last, I think, 3 clauses that we added to the original one. So I added
Yes.
I added it to this one, sent it back, they agreed to it. And the reason why they brought this agreement forward, because we already have one that's not expired, is because their federation, the larger snowmobile association wants the specific locations, everywhere it crosses a road allowance, everywhere it is, and that's for insurance purposes. So it actually, technically it benefits us
Yep.
because we sign this agreement with them, and then all of these locations are even better insured if something happens, God forbid. So it's there for consideration, and I put the same 5-year term on it that we had with Monterey.
Yeah.
And unless there's concerns or anything else, then I would let them know that it's been approved in principle, because it's coming close. They gotta start putting their signs up and move forward. And then I bring it back by bylaw on the October 15th, which I don't think snowmobile season will start yet unless we get a bunch of snow. So
Again,
it should be lots of time.
Farmer's
put
Almanac
it out
calls for
there.
November, so
Yeah, yeah.
hopefully not.
Unless there's concerns, or you want me to add something to it, or?
No, honestly, it seems straightforward. It replicates the previous one anyways.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Sounds good.
And they're at least as interested in risk management as we are, perhaps
Yes.
more.
Yes.
Good.
There was something about, when we did the Bontre one,
Mhm.
there was something about the increase in insurance for some of these clubs. It's really hitting all of us, eh?
No, it was just a particular things, the insurance company, we need to change the wording, I
That's
guess
right.
it was.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
particulars in the last time we went through the previous
Yes,
agreement,
yes,
like,
that our
uh,
insurance company recommended, I recommend,
They
even
were
though it's
missed.
sort of stated here, I recommend.
while
you put it-
there's a couple sections, yeah, so it's only, it was
Always
only a
been
benefit.
insurance.
There's so 8.2 recommendation assume portion of Silver Lake.
Jason's good.
Jason already discussed that, so straightforward.
Okay.
And then we had 8.3, we had the Roma conference, net.
Yes, thank you very much. So I just, because the rooms have now come out, and they book up very, very quickly. It's not until January in Toronto, but, if there are council members that are interested in going, then I need to get on booking that, sooner rather than later.
Did everybody see the name?
Rural.
Roots. That was me. I'm so proud.
And I know the mayor was talking to me because she's on the board, so she's taken care of.
I'm free.
So,
I won't be available for it.
okay,
I'm free.
Merv,
No, I've been to enough of them.
okay, Tracy,
I just went to 2, so
okay,
save the money.
John,
No plans.
okay. So then
Perfect.
my only question is, do you want a staff member there or no? Do you want me to attend or not? Why are you looking at me like that?
Really?
Well,
That's a silly question.
This would be a yes.
if the
We just
budget is not-
assumed.
The budget is not approved, so I need to get approval for.
Jen needs you there.
I do need her
I know.
there.
You're an
Well,
important person to
Well,
be
the other
attending.
thing is that because I'm on the board, it's more than a working conference for me.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not just delegations and everything else.
And then I have no issues like you going, just put in the budget, we would just line up the delegations for it anyways, because we're gonna have delegations there regardless.
Yeah, I
Right.
wanna talk about a couple of those. I think that there are some that we should.
No, like that's where I was getting at, is you just need we need representation there anyway, so we should just make sure we're lined up for the delegations, and that's perfect.
Yeah, but there are gonna be some good plenaries too,
Mhm.
but definitely, I have a couple of ideas for delegations for Roma.
So I'm booking one room for myself, yes?
Can we get adjoining rooms again?
I'm not booking your room.
We're roommates.
Okay,
Okay, sounds good.
Good.
thank you.
Media session, nope.
Oh yeah, we already added that to the other spot, sorry.
Yeah, the only other addition was just the Herb Wentworth letter that we received, and I put that in delegation file. Closed session, we do not have any conclusion of meeting.
So it's question,
Yes, go
The
ahead, sir.
Whitworth letter, that was a letter that got lost in the shuffle somewhere along the line, so it's just being put where it should have been put.
Yeah, so
before.
like the
Yes,
big
right.
court, like the big file we had in the e-scribe, it'll just be added to that.
Okay, thanks.
And I'm sure that well, number one, it sounds like he read all 200 pages.
Mhm.
But even when you go to the summary of all the comments, his are there.
Yeah,
So
Yeah,
Yep,
so I
good.
just, December 23rd, I was probably off, and anyway, and he and I had multiple discussions on process, but not on comments, so I couldn't find it.
to add it to the
What's-
file and that's all.
what's he
We got
doing
it.
sending it on Christmas Eve?
We've got it, we've got it now, that's all that matters.
So could I please have a conclusion of the meeting? Merv, Tracy, all those in favor? Perfect, thank you very much.